Citizen presents New Era Elision, Episode 98, Part 2, August 17, 2022, Consciously Systemizing. When preferred doctrine is used for controlling human behavior, it is also degradation of the individual's freedom and always involves the slave mentality and debilitates the individual's consciously coordinated conceptual freedom. Like no other time in the human condition, our contemporary humanity is now being informed of the reenacting interrelationship scenarios as countless video productions depict variously experienced interpersonal communications. I have seen a great many of these on the Discovery Channel. Thereat, expectations of self and others comply with what over centuries becomes less meaningful, since the power to defeat individuality and freedom is but another unidentified influential factor of the PRJWBCS. Conceptualizing freedoms by degree is critical to self-awareness, but awareness of the conceptual system has been supplanted by irrationally devised illogical power and control solutions under the irregular PRJWBCS that take authoritative precedence over recognizing the inherently inviolable integrity of the individual when personalized emulations of the PRJWBCSchemes occur in a relationship. The human imagination's interpreting awareness ability to formulate conceptually is consciously impaired thus and or missing from the communications process. This absence of aforethought satisfies the PRJWBCS expectation because the behavior engenders compliance with the slave mentality that has no intention of eliminating the slave mentality, making it almost impossible as a result to conscionably and consciously decide what the most economical solution could possibly be. Self-serving is self-off-centering. Wherever the opportunity arises, as a self-other deluding relationship utilizes the semi-deceptive nomenclatures that come into play in words like supportive that may conceal the deception. Self-deception sets the tone during development when humans depend on each other relative to coexisting. Initially, neither self nor the other knows that when a mind is systemizing, this is by differentiating local integrities from out of the total, non-unitarily conceptualizable integrity of generalized universe. Human awareness is not limited to the PRJWBCS. Fortunately, we can learn more about eliminating the slave mentality by referring to a differently conceived thought and language coordinate system The omnirational conceptioning of the different coordinated thought and language refers to R. Buckminster Fuller's synergetics explorations in the geometry of thinking. It arouses human awareness of systematically tuned-in conceptioning that is not yet tuned in, as the always and only coexisting complementarities that physics has found. Synergetics 1033.122. Apparently, the always and only co-occurring is unbeknownst to our individual tuning-in potential, as we are otherwise enslaved by imposed conditions of the PRJWBC schemes. The estrangement from this inherent potential is so severe, it takes intimidation to excruciating degrees of self-doubt. Self-doubt induces the most troubling personality disorders to behavioral extremes. This is where imbalances are profoundly disturbing, inciting vindictive justifications in relationships that expect to be validated by justice. The J factor of the PRJWBC schemes, general systems thinking, and Bucky Fuller's synergetics coincide with awareness of omnirational universe. The PRJWBCS do not provide such an alternative option for imagination's conceptual and reasoning proclivities that also can formulate conceptually referential to universe's minimum thinkable set self-validation. We will never know precisely in history of the human condition of us on earth when or if there ever was a similarly informed awareness of the always and only co-occurring complementations, the potentially informed awareness that we are now learning about. That which is knowable is anticipatory, evolutionary in any event. Awareness of the pattern stabilization states as such do not derive from the PRJWBCS, but from awareness of the topology and the geometry of universe's basic unit, the symmetrical polyhedra that disclose a conceptuality of the omni-triangulated systems. It takes getting used to. But so must it have been for our ancestors getting used to the PRJWBCS over the ages as powerfully situate authorities. For centuries, they adapted to the obligatory conformities to such extent that pinpointing its momentary experienced imposition in this, the 21st century, is almost impossible. But during the writing and referring process in retrospective self-analysis and synthesis, once this acronym PRJWBCS is known, as a contextual parameter, it serves as a derivation environment in the final analysis that cannot be the same as the primitive polyhedral systems that describe complex interbonding. Bonding, joining together, forming an interdependent interrelationship is conceptual. Therefore, it can be understood in various omnirational applications. This means, subsequent to the awareness of generalized universe, which is rudimentary, as we learn about generalizing concepts, and that such a conceptuality is independent of size regardless what the entity size is relatively to its macrocosmic to microcosmic dimensioning. From R. Buckminster Fuller Dictionary, February 27, 1972, in quotes, whenever we refer to an entity, it has to be structurally valid and therefore it has to be triangulated, end quote. In other words, the object is also an entity. So, in quotes, what we call an object or an entity is always an aggregate. It is never a solid. R. Buckminster Fuller Dictionary, February 28, 1971. I am going to present to you what's listed under entity in the RBF Dictionary. Conceivable entity. Conceivable entity equal prime. Interentity. Somethingness. Sub-entity. Thinkable entity. Rememberable entity. See also cube. In quotes, if the cube is an entity, it has 18 structural lines, end quote. Dictionary, from the RBF Dictionary, in parentheses, experience, 1960. In quotes, we cannot read simultaneously all the words in the dictionary. Yet, the dictionary is a finite collection of finite word entities, each in turn consisting of collections of finite letter symbol entries. Entropy, February 28, 1971, in quotes, and the transition from being an entity to being a plurality of entities is precession, which is peeling off into orbit rather than falling back into the original entity, end quote, in quotes. This explains entropy intimately, end quote, end quote. Entity has become invisible. The switch is precessional. And by the way, precession is one of the 6 motion freedoms. Machine, 1970, in quotes. Machines are integral systems which intertransform energies in complex but orderly angle and frequency sequences, end quote, in quotes, though humans at present are not in the habit of identifying themselves as machines. That is just what humans are, and what our planet Earth is, and what each of the living entities aboard planet Earth are, end quote. Otherness, point, September 24, 73, also in Synergetics 540.07, in quotes, because of discontinuity, the otherness points and subpoints may be anywhere. We start always with any point, event points being as yet non-comprehended. Ergo, initially, only as an apprehended otherness entity. Synergetics as a strategy of converting apprehension to discrete comprehension always proceeds vectorially, end quote. To be continued in part 3. Thank you.